Hello everybody and welcome back to another video. This time I'm watching how bad maps win elections. Gerrymandering explained by Mapman. I'm not exactly sure how bad maps could win elections, although I do know that gerrymandering means manipulating something so that one party can gain an advantage. Somehow they use that with bad maps, I guess. Let's see.
Can we do an episode about politics? No! Alright, what if it's about politics in a foreign country?
Oh, that sounds fun.
Great!
That's fine.
Men. We're the men.
And here's the map.
Map, men, map, men, map, men.
This is a map of the 435 districts that the USA is split into for the purposes of voting for members of Congress.
Wait, these are all the districts. So why do these states have basically nothing? I mean, these three are just what? They're all just one district? They didn't take the time to make any more? It's just one? I guess the population is low. I mean, this one's just two. Same with this one. I guess this area of the US is just kind of empty,
for the purposes of voting for members of Congress, the powerful people who pick the policies the president can pass.
Because elections have to be fair, it's important that the map is fair. That's why every 10 years the boundaries get redrawn to make sure every district always contains, as closely as possible, the same number of people, about 700,000.
Which means that this map
contains, as closely as possible, the same number of people, about 700,000.
Which means that this map is actually a very handy way of glancing at population density across the United States.
For example, sparsely populated Wyoming has just one district and just one representative.
Hello.
And densely populated New York has 26.
Hello.
That
Jesus
makes sense,
Christ.
but if you zoom in, some of it doesn't make sense.
26
Lots of districts have very
for one
suspicious
state.
looking shapes. Buh? Guh? Fn?
Do districts really have to be
What?
so fn just to get the populations equal?
Nope, there's something more sinister going on. And to find out what it is, we have to go back to 1812.
What, do certain districts have populations which vote for a certain
Where are
party?
we?
We're still
Like,
in
oh,
England,
these guys
but
vote
it's
conservative
1812.
and these
Shouldn't
guys
we be
vote
in Boston?
Democrat? Is that
The
it?
story starts in Boston, in the office of the governor of Massachusetts, Elbridge Gerry.
With a G.
With a G. There was an election coming up, and it looked like Gerry was about to lose his job. But his advisors came up with a bill that could practically guarantee a victory for their party without having to win any extra votes. All they had to do was change the map.
But how does changing the map change the results?
That's what Elbridge Gerry said.
How does changing the map change the results?
Allow us to demonstrate with the use of state-of-the-art graphics. Let's say there's a hypothetical rectangular state with two parties, the Chocolate Raisin Party and the Smarty Party.
The Smarty Party is more popular, obviously.
A fair result that you'd expect is 3 Smarty districts and 2 Chocolate Raisin districts.
But
That
watch
would
what
be
happens if
fair,
someone from the
but
Smarty
elections are
Party
not
is in
fair.
charge of drawing the map. They can make it so that Smarties control every district. Smarty indeed.
Oh.
But more sneakily, watch what
So they are
happens if
manipulating
someone
the
from Chocolate
populations,
Raisin
basically.
Party is in charge of drawing the map. They can mathematically make 3 Chocolate Raisin districts and just 2 Smarty, even though there are more Smarties.
Disgusting shrivelly things.
But Massachusetts wasn't a perfect rectangle with voters arranged into unrealistically neat rows.
Wyoming is.
In order to achieve their desired results on a real map of thousands of human voters, Gerry's team would have to draw their boundaries using 2 techniques: packing and cracking.
Cracking is when you break up a community of opposition voters and dissolve them into surrounding districts, making their votes powerless.
A bit like giving all your dinner guests a tiny bit of vodka in every part of the meal spread across the evening, so everyone gets very, very slightly, barely detectably drunk.
And packing is when you do the opposite, and pack as many opposition supporters as possible into just one district, making their votes wasted.
A bit like giving all of your vodka to just one of your dinner guests, keeping everyone else completely sober except Uncle Steve.
Once
Yeah,
the
it's
concept
blackout
was
drunk.
finally explained to Elbridge Gerry, he said he didn't like it and thought it was...
Highly disagreeable.
But he signed the bill anyway like a coward.
But I mean,
and
it
history
would
was
work.
made.
Gerry's team looked at a map of where their supporters lived, and after a heavy night of packing and cracking, this is what they came up with, including this improbably bendy, sort of
It's a mess.
shaped district.
The new map caused quite a stir and caught the attention of political cartoonist Elkanah Tisdale and his editor Nathan Hale.
I mean,
of the
surely
Boston
people
Gazette.
would be able to
Have you seen Governor
immediately
Gerry's
figure
new
this out.
map?
Yeah, looks like a salamander.
Ha! You mean a Gerrymander? And that's how the process of manipulating
that's
maps for
why it's
political gain became known
gerrymandering.
as gerrymandering. And then everyone started
gerrymandering.
pronouncing it wrong.
Not
Which is
with a
how
J.
it became known as gerrymandering, which was good news for Gerry, who'd
Never
probably
mind,
be
it
delighted
is
that his
Jerry.
name hasn't technically gone down in history for this bad thing.
Which brings us back to the present day.
I mean,
Anyway,
people will
in a
still remember
proper
that
democracy, such
that it
an
was him who
obvious cheating
started
would have
it.
been instantly spotted and nipped in the bud. But due to America's quirky,
Stunningly undemocratic.
system where it's politicians themselves who draw their own district maps, gerrymandering
Gerrymandering.
very much continues to this day.
and its more
Wait, hold on.
sophisticated high maps, gerrymandering very much continues to this day. And it's more sophisticated, high-tech, and
They're not
open
actually
ways
standing
than
there.
ever
This is
before anywhere else
edited,
in the world.
isn't it?
And can be seen in swing states all across America.
A shower head, a car with wings, one of those old-fashioned hand drill things.
A dinosaur, a watering can, the shape
I mean,
of the
I don't
flag
think
of the Isle
anyone
of
believed
Man.
that America's elections were fair and democratic.
Nice
You'd
sitting
have
on
to be
his
kind
horse
of
the wrong way.
A rabbit in a hat,
delusional
and
and
a
naive to
spoon.
believe
Super
that.
Sucker Seahorse Cameroon.
A plume of steam from a mug of tea.
Donald Duck being kicked by Goofy.
A carpet stain from a naughty pup.
A mouse leaning over with a big thumbs up.
Snake, dog, bat, dog, snake,
Who
dog,
makes
snake.
this?
We'll be right back after the break. Hello,
That
is
was
this the
really
travel
good.
agents?
Thank you. Well, that was fun. But gerrymandering.
Gerrymandering.
Everyone says gerrymandering.
Everyone's wrong.
Gerrymandering
It's
has
gerrymandering.
serious consequences.
North Carolina.
So it does
In the
actually have
2018
some
midterm elections,
consequences.
Republicans won 10 out of 13 seats with just 51% of the votes.
Ohio. Republicans won 12.
Hold on.
13 seats with just 51% of the votes.
Ohio.
Republicans won 10 out of 13 seats with just 51% of the votes.
Ohio.
So that was
Republicans
really
won
in their
12 out of
favour.
16 seats with just 52% of the votes.
And the Democrat
Wow.
Party does it too. Mar-I-Lawned.
I mean, of course they do.
Out of 8
They're
seats
just
with
as corrupt as the
63%
Republicans.
of the votes.
They're no
So
better.
why don't they just make squiggly districts illegal?
Oh, if only it were that simple. Sometimes a district that looks sillily squiggly has been made squiggly for a good reason. Republican voters and Democrat voters tend to clump together with their own kind, with Republicans mostly in the
That is
countryside
true.
and Democrats mostly in big cities. This is called self-sorting, and it's only getting more extreme.
The problem with self-sorting is if your district has no opposition in it, your politician won't have to work hard and you won't have to bother to vote.
And so, to
That's
encourage
tr-
healthy,
that's also
competitive
true.
elections,
That's
legislators
really
make
bad.
districts squiggly on purpose, encouraging politicians to broaden their appeal and prevent politics from being polarised.
Competitiveness
Yeah, so
is
they
not
actually
the
have to
only
put in
good
the
reason for
work and not
bonkers
just
looking map squiggle.
sit there
Take
and
a
do
look at
nothing,
Illinois.
pretty much.
In central Chicago, you'll find the famous Earmuss district, Illinois' 4th, which wraps around the 7th, barely holding itself together with the I-294 highway. Both the 4th and 7th districts are solid Democrat, so why in the name of all that jazz were they split this way?
Members of Congress don't just make up numbers for their party. Each one is supposed to represent their community.
A so-called community of interest can mean people from a certain industry or housing type or education or race.
For decades
Oh!
in America, minorities were terribly underrepresented.
Yeah, avoid that
After
topic.
much campaigning, in 1965 the Voting Rights Act was passed, which made it illegal for any state to do anything that made it difficult for minorities to get elected.
Which included drawing voting districts that broke up minority communities.
What this practically means is every state is now required to pack voters of the same race into fewer districts.
No one wants it to be necessary, but it's the only way to make Congress reflect America's true diversity instead of its true racism.
Which explains this. This is a mostly African American community, and these are two mostly Latino communities.
So immediately we can see the problem.
You can make districts compact, or you can make them competitive, or you can make them keep a community. But you can't make them all three.
That's what makes fixing
You have to choose
gerrymandering
one
so
of
hard.
three.
No one can agree on which is the most important C.
Which is why all attempts over the last few decades at fixing gerrymandering have produced various amounts of not much success, including, most notably, in California, with the strong support of Governor Arnold
Oh,
Schwarzenegger.
California. Ugh.
It's time to say hasta la vista to gerrymandering.
But in almost every case, any attempt to fix it has only made things
California,
worse,
the
serving
absolute
only to
worst
highlight
state
how
in the
impossible
United
it is
States.
to make everybody happy.
Although New
Since
York is
we're not
also
in
up
America,
there.
it's easy for us as outsiders, living in a country whose democracy is practically perfect in every way, to tell Americans how they should run theirs.
So,
Oh, it's
just
not.
in time for the next round of redistricting in 2031, here are Mapman's top tips for how the USA can fix gerrymandering.
They won't.
1. Instead of giving districts boring numbers, make legislators give them actual names. The longer the name, the harder the shape will be to justify.
2. Get computers to draw your districts for you. AI is a powerful tool these days, and the robots know
I don't know.
what's
That
best.
could end either
3.
amazingly
Abolish
or
geographical districts
terribly,
and divide the
even
country
worse
by
than it
communities
currently
of
is.
internet. The people who share your priorities that need representing in government are all across the country and not just physically close to you.
4.
Your
Increase
mom.
the number
I
of
saw,
government
are all
I
across
saw the your mom in
the
there.
country and not just
Nokia owners. Do people even have Nokias anymore?
physically close to you.
People who still watch The Simpsons.
4. Increase the number of members of Congress from 435 to 435,000, so each district contains
Oh my
just one
god,
street. Can't say
imagine.
it wouldn't work.
Imagine
And 5. Stop worrying
435,000.
about democracy and just let a dictator take over.
Before we start blaming
The
America's
United
politicians
States is
for
almost a
cheating at democracy,
dictatorship
it's important
anyway,
to
let's be
remember,
honest.
Gerrymandering is only possible because voters are predictable. You can't draw lines around how people
I'm
are going
joking,
to
of
vote
course.
if you
It's
don't
not
know how they're going to
that
vote.
bad.
Today, more than ever before, people support political parties like football teams and are less likely to ever allow their minds to be changed.
No, it's worse
by
than football
Twitter.
teams.
And the more this happens, the harder it is to draw anything apart from depressingly predictable districts.
In the last election, 81% of Americans lived in districts where it was extremely obvious who was going to win, leaving it to just a tiny handful of swing voters to decide the result for the whole country.
It's impossible to draw a map that will make everyone.
I would hate to be one of those
Fighting
people.
for fairness is worth the faff. If voters can at least feel their voices being heard, they'll be encouraged to turn up and vote, and to vote.
You know, if I was in the US and I was forced to vote between the Republicans or the Democrats, I would just choose option C, a gun and one bullet, because that's a far better choice than either of those two.
Vote for their real favourite, making democracy more meaningful.
Until then, the American political system will remain an antiquated basket case that enables those with power to rig the system for themselves and block any meaningful progress for the foreseeable future.
Glad we don't live in a country like that.
Yes, you do. And so do I. I mean, this isn't just a problem with the US. This is definitely a problem with most countries in the world. Pretty much every country in the world has corrupt elections, let's be honest here. I do not believe there is a single one which has actual fair elections. And if you disagree and think there is one, then I disagree with you. Because there is absolutely no way that a single country in this world has fair elections. That's just not possible. You can't have fair elections because not everybody votes. To have an actual fair election, you would need to have everybody over 18 years old has to vote. Every person who can vote has to vote. Only that would be a fair election. It still wouldn't be fair because there's many other problems that you'd have to solve. But first of all, you have to get every single person who can vote to actually vote. I'm not sure what the percentage was here in Poland, but I know many people just did not go. They just didn't vote. They just did not care. And that's another thing that kind of makes elections unfair, because let's say that most of the people who don't vote are people who support one party. Meanwhile, many of the people who did go vote support the other party. It's obvious which one's gonna win. You know what I'm saying? So elections will never be fair. There's no such thing as true democracy. Yeah, politics suck. Let's leave it at that. So leave a like, subscribe, comment, and I'll see you in the next video.